Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Footy Classified. Round 10 finally comes to an end just over half an hour ago, and tonight it is all about the Richmond Footy Club. 41-point victory over the West Coast Eagles, their finest win of the year, back in the 8 and looking strong. The Melbourne Footy Club, a dramatic day, or was it? As you were, how long has Mark Neal got at the Melbourne Footy Club? Lots to get through tonight. Matthew Lloyd joins us as always. Lordo, we'll talk about Richmond in great detail. West Coast Eagles have got some issues.
They're in a massive hole now, Gary. Most would have had them playing off in the grand final at the start of the year. Now they may struggle to make the finals.
Football's first lady. Good evening, Caroline. It was a surprising day on so many levels, wasn't it?
It was. Richmond was the big upset of the day, and I guess the Melbourne board created an upset too. They went into that meeting, most of the directors thinking Mark Neal would be sacked at the end of it, and he wasn't.
He wasn't. More of that very shortly. But as we said, the Richmond Footy Club tonight, 41-point victories coming back from Western Australia. It will be a wonderful trip, Lloydie. They were behind early in the piece. It looked a little ominous with Nat Newey and Cox in dominant form. And then they went on a 9-goal unanswered spree. And from that point on, they never looked back.
Their pressure, they are the worst ranked team in terms of their pressure all over the ground. And they just cracked in pretty much from halfway through the first quarter. They just dominated. As you said, it was 81 to 27 hit-outs, yet Richmond won the clearances by 4. So the midfield just got right on top, and it was their best performance of the season.
Yeah, it was significant. I mean, the amount of times that Cox and Nat Newey got clear hand on the ball, but the West Coast midfield weren't able to capitalise at all. And more, Caro and Hutchie, this game is about effort and getting your side in the right mind frame to come with the capacity to really compete.
Well, they equalled their average tackle count for the season during the third quarter, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They had 69 for the night. They averaged 51 for the season. And look, the Richmond pressure you spoke about came at both ends of the ground, which I thought was fantastic. The defence were outstanding given what they were up against, but that sort of pressure from their forwards caused the turnovers. Newman goes back and kicks a goal, and it's infectious. It goes around the ground.
Oh, the defence, Rance has stood up for the Tigers most of the year. They just dominated the Tall Eagles forward line. The midfield pressure was as good as I've seen, and Jack Revolt only kicked 2 goals tonight, but it was just a selfless team performance right across the board.
Got a heap out of Foley. Martin on Pritis was big, and it was the lack of pressure in turn from the Eagles that was the big problem.
Have a look at this.
They look in coast mode at the moment, guys.
Centre clearance. Down it goes into a forward line that we thought at the start of the game was going to provide plenty of issues. But look at the lack of pressure coming out the other side. They did this time and time again. Their disposal by foot was wonderful compared to last week. But look at this. It's come out the other side. There are Richmond players everywhere. 2 West Coast players go over here to try and compete, which opens up the centre of the ground again. And without an Eagle player laying a hand on an opposition, Jack Revolt takes the mark, goes back and kicks a goal. It was indicative of the way the game was played.
Can we talk about Nick Bloston yet?
Well, all right, Carol. I know we were sitting there watching it and you were getting more and more excited as the game wore on.
Well, I mean, it's just fantastic to see a club who has struggled with draft picks over the years, with early draft picks. There's been articles written about how the recruiting has got better, but can he win the Rising Star?
He's right in contention now. 3 goals tonight, 16 possessions. He went to the middle of the ground, started on Daniel Kerr.
Third favourite of sports, but I think he'd be second favourite now.
Looks a complete player already, doesn't he?
A lot of
After
kids,
6 games.
A lot of kids waste their first season. They're just happy to be on a list. Well, Nick Bloston was in the AIS Academy, Gary, that we've been involved in. He was 6 kilos heavier than what he is this year. He got to Richmond, realised how far off he was, lost 6 kilos, and now he runs far greater than I ever thought he could.
And he was always a leader, a leader of the Vic Metro under-18, under-16 national sides, and he's a leader already.
Are the two of you starting to change the tune a little bit on the Tigers?
No.
Caroline and Gary?
No, because I can't be guaranteed that I'm going to get that same effort next week. I mean, the difference between last week to this week is vast. I need to see some consistency. But when you've got a captain in Trent Cotchin that can win a 50-50, this summed it up as well. It was Cotchin and Gaff, who's a terrific young player as well. But they just wanted it more. Yeah. They wanted it more tonight, the Richmond Footy Club, and their supporters would have been sitting home here, and many travelled over, by the way. They made plenty of noise. They would have been over the moon with this performance.
It was the scalp that everyone wanted, or was it, given how little and how few good teams West Coast have beaten, Lordo?
It's interesting. They'd lost 3 games, West Coast Eagles, in the last 2 years at Patterson Stadium. They've now lost 4 out of 6 this year. So the home ground advantage isn't there anymore, and John Worsfold, out of contract at the end of the year, must be greatly concerned about his
team. The wins
team.
have come over Melbourne, the Western Bulldogs, GWS, Brisbane and the North Melbourne Cup.
Hawthorn, Essendon among the next 3, tough back into the year. Worsfold will be all the talk in Perth. The heat will rise on that situation very quickly. I know you've been strong on it, that he should move on at the end of the year. You still should share that view, and Do you think that the team that almost had a chance to move today, Melbourne, remains the one that could get him?
Yeah, well, early in the year I felt that John Worsfold, by what I'm getting with them not signing till the end of the year, needed a grand final to survive next year. There may not be a better candidate, so they may stick with him, but you maybe feel that John Worsfold's been there long enough now.
Gaz, Melbourne, Woosha, should they go and ask the question?
Oh, well, let's talk about Melbourne. I mean, there's no question to be asked as of today. I mean, the board meeting...
No, but I mean for next year. Like, there's obviously going to be a coaching change next year.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about it now. The board meeting took place today, Carrie. What can you tell us?
Well, it was a very long board meeting, and the coach normally, I think, presents for half an hour, presented for over an hour and a half. Neil Craig, my understanding is, Gary, was pretty bullish that the coach should remain, certainly in the short term, and Neil Craig would have been the man to replace him in the short term. Look, I think it's a matter of timing now, Gary, and it's a negotiation. We know it's going to cost the club more than $500,000 to pay him out now if he leaves, and they don't have that money, but I don't think it was necessarily as much about money as it was about this new CEO.
It couldn't have been about money, surely. Surely you don't sack your coach or keep him on the basis of money.
I just said I don't think it was about money today, but it's going to cost them a lot of money to pay him out, and they're going to need some money from the AFL. That meeting with the AFL will come in weeks. I think it'll come before the end of June, and the AFL, I think, will be giving Melbourne a lot of money to restructure not only their footy department...
You haven't you written in the Age tomorrow that it is about money?
But parts of their whole club. No, I've mentioned the fact about the payout, but no, that's not the reason they didn't move him on today.
Let's have a look at the Melbourne statement from Don.
Certainly an issue, but not the main issue.
Don McClarty, our on-field performances have not met expectations this year, and everyone in the footy department continues to face ongoing assessment in their roles, as do those employed in other areas of the club.
That's the hardly ringing endorsement of your coach, Gary.
And then he said we're not going to talk about the coaching position. I don't want to be mean about Don McClarty, because he's had a very tough time, but it was on the cards that they were going to sack the coach, Dean Bailey, at the end of the year. He did it really on a whim.
Mark Newell?
No, Dean Bailey. When Dean Bailey was sacked, it was on a whim after a massive loss. It was a knee-jerk reaction. Cameron Schwab, I would argue, was also on the cards, knee-jerk reaction. This board, you just don't know what they're going to do. The only thing is now they've got a new CEO in place who seems to be in control. I wouldn't say that he's safe after next week. I definitely don't think he's going to necessarily survive through the bye.
You're of the opinion the decision's been made?
I don't think there's any doubt in the world that
Well, they're playing a dangerous game then, if the decision has been made and they haven't told him and moved on it.
Yeah.
Because what they've done now is...
Well, he knows he's not going to be there next year.
They've left the door slightly ajar, Hutchie, and I know it's almost beyond the realms of possibility, but by not moving on him, as many in the footy world thought, they've left the door ajar. Now, who knows? An improved performance against Collingwood, which again, and we know is a rank outside chance. They have a bye, and then if he gets improved performance in the second half of the year, starts winning games where they haven't been able to, what do they do then, Craig?
You've been reading too many fairy tale books, Gas.
That's
dreamland, Gas. That is dreamland where they're at.
Don't treat me like an idiot. No. I know it is not beyond the realms of possibility, Hutchie, but if you don't move and you've made a decision, you make a very difficult situation for everyone.
But we think they will move Gary in the next few weeks.
Why haven't they moved Gary?
Well, I personally, I think it's a mistake. But I'll tell you why they haven't.
So would you have moved today? Would you?
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I agree with Craig. I think it's a negotiation now, not a decision. But I think that what Peter Jackson is trying to say, symbolically or otherwise, is the coach is not the only problem here. This football club is desperately ill. We need to fix all of it. And if we just act now, I'm not saying this is the right decision, but this is what he said. If we act now and just sack the coach, we're saying that he's the problem. He is not the problem. It is a much bigger problem. We need to get a new footy boss in first. We need to do a few other things before we sack the coach.
And you all
that's why
may very well
be
proved right. But by not being decisive and making a decision now, if that's the decision that you tell me they've already made, and by postponing it, they leave themselves
Could they, Caro, have told him today that
No.
he... No?
I don't think you tell a bloke he's sacked and he comes back next week. I don't think that. I don't think so anyway. I'd find that impossible to believe.
Gary has zero support at board level, sadly, which is an indictment on the footy club as much as anything.
OK, make a decision then, Hutchie. Why procrastinate? Why sit here and not make a decision?
Maybe the board have just lost so much confidence in themselves because they've made so many bad decisions
then
that they've listened.
Themselves.
Well, they should anyway.
Exactly.
I think some of them should sack themselves before they sack the coach.
I don't think just to go back to your point, I don't think anyone is sitting around hoping that they turn it around so he survives, which is a sad indictment on the club.
Isn't that a very sad position to be in? Going into a game hoping against Collingwood that the form does do this miraculous turnaround and embarrass them.
Yep.
Well, Craig, we talked about the AFL last week.
Yep.
The AFL and Melbourne will meet in the coming weeks, and Melbourne are going to have their hand out for a massive injection of funds.
Yep.
And I think that, look, the AFL don't pay out coaches.
And a costly new head of footy in the next 2 weeks.
But that money will obviously help to alleviate a lot of the problems.
It was interesting. He started there was signs of Mark Neal playing the politics the other way for the first time in the week. He's going to need to be Houdini to get out of this. This is what he had to say in his press conference after the game.
First priority was, training standards and AFL lifestyle, if you like. Second one was player leadership. Third one was recruiting. And within the recruiting, in brackets, go young. If the criteria was to have won 12 games by now, I don't reckon we would have taken Jesse Hogan at pick 3. Mashura wouldn't have taken a kid that had 2 hip operations with pick 4.
I think he's failed in all 3 areas. And I think, Mark Neal, if you go on training standards, you speak to people who go and watch a lot of training, who are paid professionals at AFL clubs. They say they are a long way off still. He might be trying to get there, but they're not there just yet. In terms of leadership, you'd have to say the leaders, apart from Jack Grimes, have failed. Nathan Jones has been sensational, but across the board, they haven't built enough leaders in that time. In recruiting, he spoke of youth. Roden, Burns, Peterson, Gillies, Chris Dawes is at a right age, but you'd have to say he's gone down the right track there, and I think that hurts Mark Neal as well.
The stats are damning, given that only one of his wins has come against a non-development team, and the 32 games, 5 wins, GWS 3 times, and of course the Essendon game, which was the one that stands out last year, and the losing margins continue to mount. The school of thought that they're not as far away as some of the other teams, though, Gary. Do you subscribe to that? Is there enough there for the next coach to work with, or do you think, how would you compare them against St Kilda or Bulldogs?
Well, next year you would say there will be a side that's going to have a forward line that's got Mitch Clark, a young boy Jesse Hogan, who's extremely talented, Chris Dawes, that took 12 marks on the weekend and looked okay. Jeremy Howe comes into that side. Grimes plays in the back half. Tom McDonald didn't play. Viney and Tumpus, who aren't playing at the moment. So there's stuff to work with. I think there's stuff to work with.
And Frawley finally came good. And
James
now
Frawley, he's going to be out for a month, so that's bad news. So we'll watch this space.
And good news that Peter Jackson agreed to commit to another.
Until the end of 2014, correct. We'll take a break. Plenty more still to come on Footy Classified.
You're with Footy Classified live on the 9 Network. Don't forget, it's all thanks to Home Timber and Hardware. Go where the tradies go. Get involved too in the conversation on Twitter at Footy Classified. There it is, at Footy Classified, or at Craig Hutchie to get involved in the conversation. Lordo, you said the Swans were good things to win the premiership yesterday. Do you still think they're the team to beat?
Oh, no doubt, Hutch. I've watched them the last 2 weeks. They had a slow start to the season. They had a few soft kills. They were a bit sluggish, Gary. I don't think their hunger was there, but they have kicked into gear. Why I believe? I think they have the game plan that is built for winning at the business end of the season, and they have a midfield that no other team can match, I think, in my opinion. Like, when you look at, there's the goals that they kick. So the spread that their goals, then you've got McVeigh, Jack, Kennedy, O'Keefe, Bolton, Goods, Jetta, and now Mitchell.
That's from players averaging more than 20 possessions a game.
And the goals, they have gone to another level. And Hanbury, who I just didn't mention.
Hanbury, Parker, Jack, all better players than last year?
No doubt. And they added one on the weekend that just looked like a Sydney Swans player and played like a Sydney Swans player, and his name's Tom Mitchell.
Tom Mitchell.
And Lordy, you've had him again through the AIS. The only reason he hasn't played before now is he's had some injury problems that have kept him out. But from day one, in terms of all those elite kids that have come through, you've spoke enormously highly of him.
He's the cleanest around the stoppages, and the way he can weight the football, and he's always been a well-built boy. He was always going to step in. He will not leave this side now for the next 200 games unless he's injured. And then also...
Wow, big call.
No, he won't. He's just an absolute beauty. And we've got Kurt Tippett arriving in 2 or 3 weeks. He suddenly makes Sam Reid a much better player.
I call Gary Rowan that may not get back this year.
Lewis Roberts-Thompson.
The Swans play, just very quickly, will they play Tippett as the second ruckman like Adelaide did? And is it going to put pressure on Mumford?
I reckon. Absolutely it will. When you consider that Reed's got to come back into that team, you don't want to go too top-heavy. As Essendon found out maybe in the conditions, Lordo, Gumbleton and Crameri struggled, particularly. Gumbleton ended up getting subbed out. We expect Hurley's going to come back. We expect Joe Danaher to play footy at some stage. Where does it leave Gumbleton?
I think he's in trouble in terms of his short-term future at Gumbleton. I think that after the weekend, he just didn't get the job done. And I think Hurley, they'll give opportunities to. I think the time is right now for Joe Danaher, Friday night to play. Put him in Friday night against Carlton. So suddenly he's about 4th or 5th down the chart, down the order now.
Terrible
Gumbleton.
conditions for a player like Gumbleton.
It was, but in saying that, you still can't make excuses in regards to that. And he got injured as well.
Carlisle going forward.
Carlisle went forward, made a big difference. So I just think that he's dropped down the pecking order.
Love to see Joe Danaher play on Friday night at the MCG. To be great. What about Hawthorn? Is it possible that the team on top of the ladder with 9 wins and just the 1 loss are flying under the radar slightly? They've played all 7 of last year's finalists. They've beaten all of them except for the one side they can't beat, in Geelong, by an average margin of 46 points. They lead disposals, goals and points scored. And when they started with when they've won 9 games in a row, they've made a grand final in every season. Life's almost perfect for the Hawthorn Footy Club.
At 3/4 time on the weekend, Caro, they were smashing the opposition, and he came out, it was Melbourne, and he came out...
They had a third quarter that they lost.
But he was as nasty as could be.
I
So
know.
he seems like he's on the edge to say, this is our opportunity, we cannot let this slip at all.
What about Buddy Franklin? James Frawley did a really good job on him. Kept him to just the 1 mark. He kicked 2 goals. He had 17 possessions. But the interest was in the glove on the hand, Lordo. For the first time I can remember, he had the glove on the right hand. Now, the suspicion is that it wasn't there just because it was a bit dewy and a bit wet.
No, I was told a few weeks back that he was carrying an injury and how courageous he was to still be playing and competing. Obviously, the glove told us a story that he's playing injured to a hand or a finger at the moment.
Not just the 1 mark, so big effort to be out there, but that will be exploited now. That's public in the coming weeks, no doubt, by opposition teams. Interesting with Buddy, the GWS put it very much on the record yesterday. Kevin Sheedy made his sales pitch on the Sunday Footy Show.
Well, I think that you'd be mad if you didn't, but to be quite honest, we'll sit down and we'll look at the 15 to 20 players that are off contract or in that area of negotiation, and I think that Sauce and Gubby and David Matthews, they'll sit down with a group of people. Now, you can float around in Melbourne in some of the clubs and go nowhere, because some of those clubs are going nowhere.
What did that tell us, Hutchie? What was that?
Well, they're going to be in the
Of course
fight.
they're going to be in the fight.
Yeah, and he put that on the record, and he actually discredited other Melbourne teams doing it, which is very rare for Kevin to do.
Turn it up. That's exactly what he does. Who's in the race?
I reckon there's 4.
Who are they?
Hawthorn, obviously favourites, and then GWS, Brisbane and the Gold Coast Suns. Fremantle, I think, are very confident they're going to land Harry Taylor and are really hard really hard down the Harry Taylor track, Fremantle. That's their preference and they're hard into him.
You think they're going to get him?
I think they're a big chance. Yeah, they're right in the fight.
I cannot believe he will leave Geelong.
Right in the fight. And
Geelong is so confident they're going to keep him.
And he won't leave to another Melbourne-based team, Lordo, surely.
I agree with that, Hutch. On the teams that Hutchie said, I couldn't agree more. He can't go to a Melbourne club. If Hawthorn are offering 1 to 1.1 million, there's no Melbourne club who can pay that.
Well, why would you leave Hawthorn?
Exactly right. Well, you just wonder if there are issues.
Why would you leave Hawthorn?
Yeah.
Full stop. Well, he doesn't like living in Melbourne. That's the bottom line. So,
and I mean, the Suns
Seems to have a pretty good time around Melbourne.
The Suns are well poised, aren't they? They've got...
And he's playing for the
seems to
best
have a
club.
good time and gets reported on every single time he wanders out the front
Gary,
door.
Well,
wouldn't you
that's
just
not quite true.
suck
yes,
it up?
it
Wouldn't
is.
you suck it up for that? Say,
I
I've
would.
got 5 years left of my career. I can live in Sydney for the next 30 or 40 years. Hawthorn, didn't they say earlier in the year, round 16, we want an answer from Buddy Franklin? Well, it's getting close for this answer from Buddy Franklin.
And he's just saying, well, you might not get one.
Well, they're signing all their other players, so I just wonder whether there's whether they're holding out this money or it's going to get less and less.
The Dockers are cool on him?
I'd go Harry Taylor before Lance Franklin.
What about the Dockers? Just a terrific win against the Adelaide Crows, another really competitive game.
Do you subscribe to they can win it?
I think maybe not this year, Hutchie, but they are heading towards it. And
Where are their deficiencies? They're unbelievably drilled.
goals?
Yeah.
I think the front half.
Found enough though, haven't they?
Well, they have.
Without Pavlich, Sandler.
Yeah, but what you're then
bunch of
saying
Hill.
is, can Walters come up on the big stage and kick enough goals, and can their makeshift forwards get? I mean, I love Maine. I'm a huge fan, but I reckon they might need another one.
The Collingwood win was timely, but there's still some issues. The Rat Pack concerns you, Lordo.
I may be reading too much into it, but I want to play a few grabs from the weekend's play. Firstly, Nathan Buckley.
Dane Swan. Nathan Buckley has commented on plenty of this. I wrote about it on the weekend, but let's have a quick listen to Dane Swan, who was interviewed after the game.
had a little bit of effect against Freo, I think, and we'll just lack a goal scorer. So something different. We tried it, worked one week, didn't work the other. So it's good to be back in the middle, mate. Doing what hopefully I think I do best. So hopefully I can stay there from now on.
So spent some time forward over the past couple of weeks.
Wasn't
He was, well, and you would. I mean, he's won a Brownlow medal. He's an elite player through the middle of the ground. So of course you're going to state your case to come back in the middle. Now Nathan Buckley, he was asked after the game also about the return of Alan Didak on the weekend.
Yeah, look, I thought Dids came on and gave us some run. He had a few mates look after him. He'd received some handballs from Shorey and from Swanee at times. And
do you discount those? Do you? They don't count.
No, they count. They count. Sometimes it's. Look, they do share it around a little bit, the boys. But in the end, it's all about the team effect. And Dids was able to come on and play his role.
He did come on and play his role, but he had to work hard to get back into that side. What are you reading into this?
I just believe that there's a bit of a power struggle, and Nathan Buckley will win out this power struggle, but he sure gets dropped for disciplinary reasons with his skin folds. Dane Swan gets taken out of the position he wants to because he's not working hard enough defensively in the midfield. And then you've got Alan Didak, who all the guys think should be playing, but he hasn't been able to play till now, and they're all trying to help him play as well as they possibly can.
It's subtle, but it's real,
It's
isn't
subtle,
it?
but I think it's a fact there at the moment. And those guys are the key to him winning a premiership. So he needs them on board, but at the same time, he can't give them any preferential treatment.
There's a power shift.
I think there is. And I think that the way he sure played on the weekend was the most disciplined I've seen him for a long time. So to me, that's a big tick for Buckley, and also the way Swan played as well.
Stick around, plenty more to come. Good call, bad call. Carro's arrows still ahead, and the Saints' concerns up next.
Welcome back to Footy Classified. Thanks to Home Timber and Hardware Go where the tradies go. The Saints are of some concern right now. Their first quarter against North Melbourne was as bad nearly as any footy played this year and as uncompetitive, Caro. You were reasonably, or in fact you were very bullish early in the year. You wrote an article in The Age back on the 27th of April, certainly the state of St Kilda's
2
list.
weeks in a row you
while
brought this up.
uneven and ageing in
glad
turn.
you've
Let
been
me read
reading
it. Of its stars is not in a terminal state. Reece Stanley, Nathan Wright, Brodie Murdoch stand out as future stars, while McAvoy, the hot favourite to take over the captaincy from Rewalt and Armitage, have become obvious leaders.
Yeah, and at the time, the article was actually
Don't be
about...
defensive, I'm just throwing
I'm
it
not being
You're allowed
defensive,
to say
but...
you got it wrong too, by the way.
Matthew, did you read
we
the
all
whole...
get things wrong at times.
Don't you start.
No, I'm being
smarty
honest.
pants.
I'm being honest.
Did you read the whole article? The point of the article was saying that the players and the board and a lot of the administration were taken aback when the coach announced after 2 losses that they were rebuilding. The players hadn't been brought into that plan. The board weren't aware of it, and neither was
So
the
are they brought
administration.
into it now?
It was a political article about the fallout of those comments.
You think the list is healthy still?
That was one. I still think Ben McAvoy is going to be the next captain. I think he's going to be terrific. I think Armitage has improved. All the players I mentioned, to think of future good players. And at the time I wrote that article, I didn't think that it was as doom and gloom at St Kilda. Just as
What do you two think then? You think it's
just let me
doom and
say
gloom?
one
There we
more
go.
thing, because you brought this up twice. You've banged on about the Gold Coast for a year and a half and said they were
they've been
finished.
awful.
I think they're really showing improvement. And I don't
Yeah,
think
they've
we should
beaten
be...
4 lowly teams. St Kilda, they're going that way, Gold Coast. St Kilda are going that way.
Well, you said you haven't...
Which
you weren't
way
saying
Gold
that
Coast
about-
go?
They're rising
So
gently,
you've changed
Gary.
your tune about that now,
No, I
have
haven't.
you?
They've beaten the 4 bottom teams.
St Kilda have been disappointing
So they
since
should
I wrote
after
that
2.5
article,
years.
and they could still turn
Where
it
do you
around.
think St Kilda are at?
Oh, no, they're in trouble. They are in big trouble.
Yeah,
I
they've
think.
been terrible the last
But
few
not
weeks.
just about the last few
Terrible.
weeks, it's more where their list is positioned at the moment. So their best players are Revolt, about to go in 2 years. Montagna, who knows how long he's got left. Hayes will retire at the end of the year. And those young kids, I don't
Del
think...
Santo.
Yeah,
Milne
Del
gone.
Santo as well.
Yep.
Goddard
But I
gone.
think some of the players were so disappointed and had lost so
Hickey.
much heart that affected their form, and I still say that about Nick Del Santo.
Lee and Hickey are going to be the ones that define this year, aren't they?
They need
Big
what
12
they
and
gave
13.
away for them. They need them to be 200 game players. The jury's out, and then Wright, Nunes, they're as hard as they come. Steve and Armitage, but I'm not sure they're going to get you back to finals footy.
The Port Adelaide Footy Club have been a curious case. 5 losses in a row now, Lotto.
I think they got worked out. I think they're a very attacking team, and they just bullet a gate, but they don't defend very well. You get watched, and they've been exposed. I think they were trained pretty hard over the off-season, and they've sort of hit a bit of a wall.
Yeah, that's what happened. I mean, Ken Hinkley came in and gave them a good working over. They were absolutely fit and flying at the start of the season, and a bit of reality has struck. 5 and 5, I think, is not a bad
It's almost
result.
a pity they won 5 in a row and then lost 5. Had they done it a bit intermittently had it been
For the
zigzag.
sake of their club, I think they need to, though, keep winning. They can't afford to go on now lose 8 or 9 in a row.
Exactly. I
was a
watched
terrible loss.
GWS and Carlton on the weekend, and then the game was okay. They had some competitive moments, the Giants.
Do you worry about them, where they're at, GWS?
I worry about the development of the players in as much as that these massive losses mean that they can't develop holistically, if you like. And I watched Tom Scully and Lockie Whitfield really closely on the weekend, Lordo, and the work rate of those two boys was phenomenal. I know Scully's copped a lot of criticism, but his work in running to the right places, and look, these are just examples of his work rate, not the sort of things that I wanted to show, because a lot of it was in close, and in really good sides, the rewarded running that these blokes did, we'd be coming off saying Scully's in good form. And that kid, Lockie Whitfield, absolutely busted his backside from one end of the ground to the other. They just don't react quick enough at the moment. They don't look to really bring and reward the hard running. There's Scully there. I mean, all that space on the fat side of the ground was opened up where Scully had worked into. So I just worry a little bit about those sorts of guys. And these were the leading pressure acts of the day for the whole team, and Scully led the absolute Carlton and GWS, and Whitfield was second. I reckon it was really significant, but it never shows up on a stat sheet because they're continually getting smashed.
So, Gary, we talk about Buddy, and we don't know if they're going to get him. They're clearly going to be very aggressive to grab free agents or restricted free agents. In your mind, what sort of players say they were getting 3? What do they need?
They need support for Jeremy Cameron. They've been unlucky that Patton's gone down, but he started the game in the first 5 minutes like he was going to kick 11 goals. But, I mean, the ball just dried up. They double-teamed him because they have no other forward line option in there.
Key back and ruckman.
They need a big key back when they need a big key ruckman. Big bodies, strong bodies that are going to help these
There's
kids
no
out.
doubt Leon Cameron's going.
They are working their backside off. Those two boys in particular, just not getting the rewards.
Carrie, one that slipped under the radar a little bit is Jeff Geeshan's decision to take long service leave during the season rather than in the off-season. It comes at a curious time.
We discussed that 2 weeks ago on the show. He's got a family wedding.
He's taken
it really is a wedding, I think.
6 weeks off in the season. It came after his interview that didn't go so well. These are the reactions since first from Andrew Demetriou when he was here, and then from Mark Evans on the Sunday Footy Show on the weekend.
I think the interview that he did, the one that they showed on the couch, I don't think it was one of Jeff's finest moments, and he'd probably agree.
You're referring to, I'd imagine, Jeff Geeshan's commentary around that particular issue at the time. Did that cloud it unnecessarily?
Yeah, it did a little bit.
That was Mark Evans yesterday with Damo. Is his position under threat, and why would he go away mid-season when he has a new boss to impress?
Well, I'm told he's going overseas and there is legitimately a family
But
wedding.
6 weeks?
Well, he's taking long service leave. I've asked the AFL about it. I don't know what you've heard, Craig.
Do you think he'll be there next year, Hutch?
I wouldn't imagine that he would be. I mean, he's been a fantastic servant, hasn't he, for the AFL, but new footy operations manager, new boss, new leader, you don't go away necessarily when a new boss comes in.
The long service leave was pre-planned, I'm told.
No, it wasn't, and he deserves it because he's been fantastic.
Been there for a long
why
time.
wouldn't you take it October, November, December? He doesn't have any training duties over summer.
You'd have to ask him. But
do you think it's curious?
Yeah,
They're
very
doing
curious.
a family holiday to Europe in the summer.
Well, you don't go during the
summertime.
footy seasons, that's when you work.
Well, Andrew Demetriou did.
Well, but that's his prerogative. He's going okay. The competition was going okay at the
The
time.
umpiring's better, though, isn't
Mark
it?
Evans' imprimatur on the umpiring has
Massive.
been profound. And if you have a look at these, this is when he began. The average free kicks paid before he got there
It's
were
like a lightning bolt, Gary.
It is like a lightning bolt. Well, 415 a round, if you
It's
don't
even
mind.
better than when we showed
There
it
was
2
a little
weeks ago.
correction around about round 6, but right
What
now,
errors that weekend?
243 free kicks.
Coming into tonight's game, yeah.
Coming into tonight's game. And if anyone that's watched football closely over the past week, 2 weeks, it has been umpired
So much better,
magnificently.
isn't it? Does
Well,
everyone
so
love
much
it?
enjoyable
Yeah.
to go.
Just the forwards, backs, they're all happy. Even some players are actually still starting to react, going, where's my free kick? Because they're still thinking the game was what it was in the
And
first
the
5
divers
weeks.
are
but
getting
the game's
sorted out.
changed.
The
It's
blokes
been
that are
brilliant.
diving and sprawling, trying to get the in the back, they're all being found out. The other, quickly, before we head to the break, the other big issue, of course, was the racism row, which involved Eddie Maguire. Everyone's had their say on that to this stage. Caro, you wrote some very strong articles and got yourself caught up with Andrew Demetriou in the process.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to compare two versions of what went on with Matt Rendell. Let's have a listen to Andrew Demetriou and Neil Mitchell last Friday.
I thought that was a really poor piece of journalism by Caroline Wilson this morning, and I've said that to her. It's completely different. I mean, in the Matt Rendell situation, Matt Rendell said something which was a terrible thing to say about Indigenous players. He was then brought in by his CEO of the Adelaide Football Club. He was unrepentant about what he'd said, and he was asked to go away and come back in the afternoon to think about what he said. he didn't change his views. And the club said, that is not the policy of our club. And he was dismissed by the football club.
Now, there are people at the Collingwood Football Club and other friends of Matt Rendell who absolutely refute that version of events. So I went back and had a look at our interview with Matt Rendell last year, and this is what Matt said to you, Gary, when you asked about his sacking.
I was a forced hand, but I go into the office, well, as I said, I came to the office and I read it. I said, well, I'm pretty sure that's not how it got portrayed. I said, oh, well, I'll get in front of the media and tell them the story, okay? And Tricky said, well, it's a bit too late. I said, do you want to sack me? And he said, I prefer you to stand down.
Now, Matt Rendell never got a chance to go in front of the media when he was working at the football club. He got his chance on Classified the following week. I would say that there are a lot of similarities in those two situations, and I would say that Matt Rendell, I haven't spoken to him, but I know from talking to him last year, he completely refuted what Andrew said on Neil Mitchell on Friday. I just thought we shouldn't let that one go through to the keeper.
You got a theory on it, Hutchie, haven't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're dispendable, you're dispendable in our game. But I don't think for a minute that Eddie deserved to, or should have stood down. I mean, I have enormous empathy.
What about Matt Rendell?
No.
What about Robert Dipier, Domenico, Dean Jones?
No, they're all isolated cases. I think Matt Rendell was unlucky. The others I don't know enough about.
So did Andrew ring you to take you to task?
Oh, no, he just sent me a dirty text message. That's fine, I sent one back.
Dirty one.
An angry, you mean?
Angry, cross. You know, he was dirty.
Thought we had another big scandal there.
Yeah, onto something there, actually.
Oh, for
That's what happens when you go live, this stuff comes out.
But look, some men are equal. What did Orwell say? Some animals are equal, but some other animals are more equal than others. And that's what happened with Eddie.
Horribly sad for what happened to Adam Goods. Huge sympathy, but I've got sympathy for Eddie as well. I think it was just a sad thing all round. No one meant it.
I think it's been well and truly debated throughout the course of the past 4 or 5 days. A break, good call, bad call, and the arrow up next. Welcome back. Matthew Lloyd with the new ball. Good call, bad call. Lordo, Jimmy Bartell's the greatest wet weather player of all time. Good call, bad call.
Good call, great call, Gary. I've never seen him play a bad game in the wet in my history in the game.
Caro, Will Minson's in pole position for All-Australian ruckman. Good call, bad call.
Bad call, early call. I think Mike Pike's my favourite.
Mike Pike.
Yes.
All right. Hutchie, the confusion over Mark Neild is not surprising when you have a listen to this.
Well, I've heard from a few of my contacts at the Melbourne Football Club that he has been sacked and that he'll be temporarily replaced by an acting coach whose name I can't remember.
We're not laughing. What are you laughing at?
Oh, well, it's funny.
Well,
it's a good call. Yeah, it's a good call. Excellent call. Whose name I can't remember would be some Melbourne people's choice for coach, Gaz, at the moment. But that wasn't Australian. I've made plenty of blues. That wasn't Australian journalism's finest hour today, that's for sure.
We've all made blues.
Whose name I can't remember. Gary, you're next.
All right.
GWS need to find a foil for Jeremy Cameron in the forward line or he will be crucified. Good call, bad call.
A good call, repeated call from just earlier in the show. But he gets double teamed. It's too easy to double team.
They lost Patton too.
Patton out hasn't helped.
The obvious question, all right, for yourself. Jack Redden will pip Gary Ablett for goal of the year. Good call, bad call?
No, bad call. I loved Gary Ablett's goal on the weekend. Jack Redden, good one, but we've seen that many times, Gary. We've seen that many times.
I've
seen Eddie Betts kick them week after week. Jeff Garlett, that is unique. You never see that, where you see Redden's time after time.
All right, Lordo. Hutchie, Cameron Ling is the next Michael Parkinson. Good call, bad call.
Good call, Gary.
You said
he doesn't get the credit he deserves. Cameron Ling is the most positive human being walking the planet in Australia. If you don't think so, Mark Neild, pressure day. Have a look at this.
And one of the real positives from the last couple of weeks is Jack Trengove starting to build into some good form and finding a little bit of the footy.
Oh, Gary, he could go in and be one of the hard-hitting talk show hosts. He is positive.com.
Tough on Lingy.
He's
like it.
Tiptoeing through the tulips. He's skipping. He's fantastic. I love him.
Caro. You? Me. Caro.
Yep.
Melbourne made a crazy decision in recontracting Chris Conley for 2 years. Good call, bad call?
Bad call. Everyone deserves a second chance call. He made a mistake and he's coming back next year. I'm sure the deal's been done for a while and good luck to him.
He's a champion. He's having 5 holidays at the moment.
Little rhyme at a finish with, Gaz. Drew Petrie proved you don't need to rest to be the best. Good call, bad call.
Good call, Hutchie. It may have escaped your attention. Drew Petrie played 100% of the game yesterday, did not come to the bench for a rotation or a rest, and was almost universally acclaimed as the best player on the ground.
A fantastic effort by Brent Harvey too in game 250. Time for the reason you've all stayed up for this live edition of Footy Classified. It's time for Caro's Arrow.
Before I start, let's have a very quick look at after the bounce on Fox Footy last night.
I mean, it's probably a ridiculous question.
How
really.
would they expect Mark Neal to answer that, to be brutally honest?
No one likes it, though, when the vultures start circling, so we'll wait and see how that all plays out.
Well done, boys. Who do we have there? Jason Dunstall, the footy director at the Hawthorn Football Club. Danny Frawley, the CEO of the Coaches Association. And Alistair Lynch, a player manager, runs a management company. To coin a Craig Hutchison term, you threw peanuts last night at the media from the cheap seats. You all make money out of the media. In fact, most of you make more money than anything else out of the media. You're conflicted. We all know that, and that's fine. But to bag young journos for asking obvious questions of Mark Neal when you big, brave men would have no idea what it's like to sit in a press conference like that and ask questions that need to be asked, shame on you.
Doesn't miss.
I'm not Arrow and my two mates. I've got to work with them.
All right. Arrow's down.
Hang on a double. Oh, sorry. One for you, Lynchy.
Caro, can I take you to task on this? There was nothing there that was said that wasn't fair comment. You at the moment you've got a, what I call a mashing. You've got a spud bashing going on. You are time and time again critical of his role in the Coaches Association and the media. I don't know what he's done to you. Is it because he coached Richmond?
If you take on another Arrow, I'll smash you. Jason Dunstall called media vultures. Vultures. It is an obvious story.
He's included himself in that.
No, he did not.
He did.
Every single Melbourne director wanted to sack Mark Neal, and we're the vultures.
He said no one likes it when the vultures circle. Do you like it when the vultures circle?
I object to him using the term vulture. I object to Alistair Lynch,
these days,
who knows a lot of stories but can't reveal them on air, even though he's a commentator now, saying that it was a stupid question. A stupid question. And Danny Frawley, how's he supposed to answer that? Danny, are you in the media?
He's up on spud, my man.
You know I love him too, but that was not good enough.
Going back for another down the barrel.
Oh, no, don't expect me to fire him again.
Seats.
There you go. This is Footy Classified. Tomorrow's headlines are next. Thanks for staying up and watching Footy Classified. Thanks to you for the Twitter audience, Gary, who picked me up on saying 250th for Brent Harvey was 350th.
Exactly right.
Thanks for getting involved at Footy Classified, hashtag it too. Tomorrow's headlines, let's go. Carolyn Wilson, we start as always with the age.
The $600,000 man. His name, Mark Neal.
The Australian, Patrick Smith, talks about Peter Jackson being the best recruit Melbourne have had.
And in the West Australian, the Eagles are rocked by copping a hammering tonight from Richmond.
Even Rucci's gone with Neal. He's safe. Axel Looms, but for the time being, he's safe in the Addy. While in the Herald Sun, Neal safe for now, and Jackson urging the board to restructure the football department. No doubt that'll come in the coming weeks. Time for Sammy Soho's workshop closing cook.
Indeed. Now, this is a contentious issue over the course of the weekend. It's the goal review system. Now, I want you all to have a look at the incident that has got everyone talking in Adelaide, and then we'll have a chat about it afterwards.
28,000 on the edge of their seats. Squeezes it in.
Post.
Adelaide in front.
Posted it.
Okay. Sorry, when the ball went through, I heard it hit the post. You heard it hit the post. So you're saying it hit the post?
The goal umpire was overruled, or attempted to be overruled, by the boundary umpire, who said he heard it hit the post. Now, that was a goal by the most popular footballer in Adelaide to put them in front against the Fremantle Footy Club. The noise level would have been at its highest. Steve Austin, the $6 million man, wouldn't have been able to hear that with his bionic ear. And I point to Stefan Grun in an article he wrote for The Age, and I quote, an AFL field, you cannot hear much other than a wall of sound, a cacophony of cheers and boos. Why, in God's name, would you defer to a boundary umpire on what he thought he heard?
It's not possible he heard it in his earpiece from someone upstairs.
It's not possible about anything.
Do you think the decision was right?
But it was the right decision ultimately.
I don't care. When you start getting a goal umpire trying to overrule a bloke who's standing on the goal post, and we had this argument with Andrew Demetriou.
So the end doesn't justify the means?
He got it right, he fluked it. That's what he did.
It's more the system. If we're going to do it, I know we're getting rid of the howler, but there's too many coming back inconclusive.
Correct. A couple of other subjects before we go. The Western Bulldogs have won 2 games in a row since Lordo sat down and had a chat with Brendan McCartney.
Turn them around.
I think there's something in that. Don't worry about that. Hey, well done to the Tigers Monday Night Footy. A fan or not? Around the table?
No.
Yes.
Caroline?
Yes, once in a while.
Never, ever again, because
a lot
it
of time
keeps
to be
us up
spent with you
late.
guys, though.
See you next Monday night at 10:30. Good night.